Sorry I'm taking so long. Good afternoon, television fans. Big Al here. Ooh.
Radio fans.
Let me turn that down. That was me on an earlier video. Anyway, welcome, television fans. Big Al here on this Tuesday, July 8th, 2025, and we are back with episode 7 of Television Station History. And today we'll be looking at the primary PBS television station in New York, and that's WNET. One of the flagships of the public broadcasting service today, Channel 13 actually began as a commercial station before being switched to non-commercial educational. So here today is the history of WNET, and before we begin, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, ring the bell and get notified every time I go live, and here we go. WNET Channel 13, branded on air as 13 or stylized as 13, all in caps, is a primary PBS member television station licensed to Newark, New Jersey, serving the New York City area. Owned by the WNET Group, formerly known as the Educational Broadcasting Corporation and later as WNET.org, it is a sister station to the area's secondary PBS member, Garden City, New York licensed WLIW Channel 21, and two Class A stations, WMBQ-CD Channel 46 and WNDT-CD Channel 14. Which shares spectrum with WNET. The WNET Group also operates New Jersey's PBS state network, NJ PBS, and the website NJ Spotlight through an outsourcing agreement. WNET and WLIW share studios at One Worldwide Plaza in Midtown Manhattan, with an auxiliary street-level studio in the Lincoln Center complex on Manhattan's Upper West Side, and Channel 13's transmitter is located at One World Trade Center. Alright, here are the specs on WNET. Newark, New Jersey, New York, New York. The station broadcasts on Virtual Channel 13 and RF Digital Channel 12, which is shared with WNDT. Their brand is, of course, 13. Hi, Anna. How are you? Alright. So, PBS and PBS Kids are the programming on this channel. The owner is the WNET Group, and the station is licensed by WNET, which makes the entire NJ PBS television network a sister to WNET, as well as WEER, WLIW TV, WLIW FM, WMBQ CD, and WNDT CD. Channel 13 signed on the air on May 15, 1948 as commercial station WATV. They would change call signs to WNA, or rather the WNTA TV in 1958, and then to WNDT in 1962, before coming WNET in 1970. The station broadcast on analog VHF Channel 13 from its 1948 sign-on to 2009. Their digital signal had been on UHF Channel 61 from 1998 to 2009, and Channel 13 from 2009 to 2020 before landing on Channel 12. That's their digital signal. Alright. They were a commercial independent station from 1948 to 1956, and again from 1961 to 62. And in between, they were the flagship station of the now defunct NTA Film Network. That was from 1956 to 1961. Then the station went non-commercial and was an NET affiliate until from 1962 rather until 1970 when PBS took over. Call sign meaning is National Educational Television, which is the forerunner of today's PBS. WNET is licensed by the Federal Communications Commission. Their effective radiated power is 6.5 kilowatts from their 1,666-foot tower at One World Trade Center. The station's website is www.13.org, and their corporate website is www.net.org. Alright, history. As an independent station from 1948 to 1962. WNET commenced broadcasting on May 15, 1948 from a transmitter located atop First Mountain in West Orange, New Jersey as WATV, a commercial television station owned by Atlantic Television, a subsidiary of Bremer Broadcasting Corporation. Frank V. Bremer, the CEO, also owned two New Jersey stations, radio stations that is, WAAT 970 AM and WAAT FM 94.7. The three stations were based in the Mosque Theater at 1020 Broad Street in Newark. WATV was the first of three news stations in the New York City television market to sign on the air during 1948 and was also New York's first independent station. One unusual daytime program, Day Watch, considered of a camera focused on a typewriter printing wire service news stories, interspersed with cutaways to mechanical toys against a light music soundtrack. Another early series by the station was Stairway to Stardom, 1950 to 1951. One of the first TV series with an African American host. WATV's transmitter was moved to the Empire State Building in November 1953. On October 6, 1957, Bremer Broadcasting announced it has sold its stations for $3.5 million to National Telefilm Associates, or NTA, an early distributor of motion pictures for television, joining its NTA film network. On May 7, 1958, Channel 13's call sign was changed to WNTA-TV to reflect the new ownership. The radio stations also adopted these call letters. NTA's cash resources enabled WNTA to produce a schedule of programming with greater emphasis on the people and events of New Jersey, compared to the other commercial television stations. NTA also sought to make Channel 13 the center of a new commercial network. Though during its run, the NTA Film Network offered only one night of in-pattern network programming. Hunter's in the house, what's up? Friday nights in 1957 and 58, and for most purposes, WNTA served as the New York showcase for nationally syndicated programming, and produced several such entries. Notably, the anthology drama series Play of the Week, the talk show Open End, hosted by David Susskind, children's show The Magic Clown, and a popular dance program emceed by Clay Cole. The station continued to lag behind New York's other independent stations, WNEW-TV Channel 5, WOR-TV Channel 9, and WPIX Channel 11 in terms of audience size, and NTA incurred a large debt load. National Telefilm Associates put the WNTA stations up for sale in February 1961. Transition, 1961 to 1962. At least 3 prospective purchasers expressed interest in WNTA. The most prominent was the New York City-based group Educational Television for the Metropolitan Area, otherwise known as ETMA, a consortium of business people, cultural leaders, and educators who intended to turn Channel 13 into New York City's educational station. By this time, it was obvious that the non-commercial frequency that the FCC originally allocated to the city, UHF Channel 25, would not be near adequate enough to cover a market that stretched from Fairfield County, Connecticut in the north to Orange County, or rather Ocean County, New Jersey in the south. Prior to 1964, when the FCC required television manufacturers to include UHF tuners in newer sets, as per the All-Channel Receiver Act passed in 1961, most viewers could not view UHF stations except with an expensive converter. Only a few manufacturers made sets with built-in UHF tuning. Even for those who could access UHF stations, reception was marginal even under the best conditions. With assistance from the University of the State of New York, ETMA had attempted to purchase Channel 13 and convert it into a non-commercial station in 1957, when Bremer Broadcasting first put the station on the block. This bid was later withdrawn. This time, ETMA was competing with NTA founding president Eli Landau, who had formed a syndicate to buy the station after resigning from NTA, and David Susskind, who received financial backing from Paramount Pictures. ETMA's initial bid of $4 million was rejected by NTA, but the Citizens Group remained persistent. With the support and guidance of National Educational Television, or NET, ETMA later received an endorsement from newly appointed FCC Chairman Newton M. Menow, who established public hearings to discuss the fate of Channel 13. The pendulum quickly shifted in favor of Channel 13 going non-commercial, and the commercial suitors withdrew their interest. On June 29, 1961, ETMA agreed to purchase WNTA for $6.2 million. About $2 million of that amount came from five of the city's 6 remaining commercial VHF stations, with WPIX being the lone holdout, and all of whom were pleased to see a competitor eliminated. In addition, CBS later donated a facility in Manhattan to ETMA and NET to use as a studio. The FCC approved the transfer in October and converted Channel 13's commercial license to non-commercial. The outgoing New Jersey Governor, Robert B. Maynard, addressing state lawmakers concerning over continued programming specific to New Jersey, and fearing the FCC would move the Channel 13 allocation to New York City, petitioned the United States Courts of Appeals on September 6, 1961, to block the sale of WNTA TV. The court ruled in the state's favor 2 months later. The unsettled deal almost caused National Telefilm Associates to reconsider its decision to sell the station altogether, and NTA made plans to go forward. WNTA TV made a play to acquire broadcast rights for the New York Mets baseball team for its inaugural 1962 season. Faced with either consummating the transaction or seeing it canceled, ETMA settled their differences with New Jersey officials on December 4, 1961. At a few last-minute issues arose to cause further delays, the transfer became final on December 22nd. Later that evening, WNTA-TV signed off for the final time. ETMA and NET then went to work converting the station, which they said would return with its new educational format within 3 months. 10 months later, Channel 13 was ready to be reborn under the new call letters WNDT, which stood for New Dimensions in Television, with Edward R. Murrow, then director of the United States Information Agency, as host of the maiden broadcast. ETMA, which at this time was called the Educational Broadcasting Corporation, flipped the switch on September 16, 1962. The return of Channel 13 as WNDT gave the New York City market its first educational station, and with a dial position on the coveted VHF band. In many other cities, including large ones, educational stations had to make do with UHF frequencies. New York's non-commercial UHF channel, on the other hand, signed on as WNYE-TV 4.5 years later in April of 1967. Richard Hefner was appointed as WNDT's first general manager, serving in that position in its first year. Hefner continued to appear on Channel 13 as producer and host of the public affairs program The Open Mind until his death in December of 2013. Joey's in the house. What's up, partner? Educational/public television station, 1962 to the present. During the transition and after the inaugural broadcast, WNDT faced an immediate crisis. The American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, known as AFTRA, was concerned about the use of teachers, some of whom were union-certified performers, on non-commercial television, and how they would be compensated should their work be distributed nationally. AFTRA called a strike on the morning of WNDT's debut. Engineers and technicians who were members of the IBEW, or the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, refused to cross the AFTRA picket line, leaving the station's management and other non-union employees to produce the 3-hour inaugural broadcast. Immediately afterwards, Channel 13 went off the air again, as the strike continued for nearly 2 weeks. The striking workers returned WNDT to the air after 10 days, and on September 28th, the labor dispute was settled. However, the station's financial resources were drained, requiring an infusion of cash from the Ford Foundation to help keep the station running. NET originally wanted to merge its operations with WNDT, which would have given the station a direct line of funding as well as make Channel 13 NET's flagship station. The Ford Foundation, which supported both groups, stopped the proposed mergers on at least 2 different occasions, in 1962 and 1965. Events that began in 1967 led the Ford Foundation to change its stance and push for a WNDT/NET merger. The newly formed Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which was created by an act of the United States Congress, initially supported NET's network role, while providing government funding for programming. But that move was followed 2 years later by the establishment of the Public Broadcasting Service as the CPB's own distribution system, which was a direct threat to NET's territory. It had been intimated that the CPB's creation was an attempt to curb NET's production of controversial documentaries and replace it with a less controversial government-friendly broadcaster, less hostile and particular to the Johnson and later the Nixon administrations. NET ignored the demand and continued with the production of the critically acclaimed documentaries. At one point, President Nixon, frustrated with NET's documentaries, criticizing his administration, especially its handling of the Vietnam War, almost managed to cut NET's $20 million funding grant in half. This led both the Ford Foundation and the CPB to threaten NET with funding withdrawal in early 1970 unless it merged its operations with WNET. Not long after, the Ford Foundation brokered the merger of WNET and NET, which would take effect on June 29, 1970. Channel 13's call sign would be changed to the present WNET on October 1st of that year. NET ceased network operations 3 days later, with PBS taking over the following day. The station continued to produce some shows for the national PBS schedule with the NET branding until early 1972, when they began to be identified as WNET 13 programs. A formal consolidation of the corporate's separate national and local production facilities occurred later that year. Following the merger, David Loxton established the TV Lab in 1972 with support from the Rockefeller Foundation and New York State Council of the Arts. TV Lab provided artists with equipment to produce video pieces through an Artist in Residence program. The Independent Documentary Fund and videotape review series were both producers or productions of TV Lab. TV Lab would end in 1984 when the CPB withdrew funds. What's up, Crazy Cajun? How you doing, bro? Since 1979, the station has been known on air as 13. It continued to include Newark in its legal IDs, though logos for national productions read New York, until the late 1990s. Since then, it has identified mostly as New York, though it is still legally licensed to Newark. Even after becoming a non-commercial station, Channel 13 retained its original studios and offices at the Mosque Theater in Newark. The station eventually moved to the Gateway Center office building, also in Newark. In 1982, more than 20 years after becoming the New York area's flagship public television station, WNET moved its operations to the Hudson Hotel at 237 West 58th Street in Manhattan, while retaining the Gateway Center studios for a few more years. In 1987, Channel 13 celebrated its silver anniversary with a series of rebroadcasts of older programs titled 13 Revisited. In 1998, WNET moved to 450 West 33rd Street, straddling the railroad tracks going into Penn Station. Channel 13's transmitter facilities, including a newly installed digital transmitter system, were destroyed in the terror attacks of September 11, 2001. Rod Coppola, Channel 13's head transmission engineer, was among those who died when the North Tower collapsed. His remains were discovered on December 25, 2001. For the next 10 months, WNYE-TV, headquartered in Brooklyn, became WNET's surrogate transmitter and airwave for those without cable. Repeats of WNET's primetime schedule were broadcast on WNYE until Channel 13 could reestablish transmission facilities back at the Empire State Building. Sometime later in February 2003, NET completed its merger with Long Island PBS broadcaster WLIW Channel 21, currently licensed to Garden City and based in Plainview, New York, combining the two stations into one operation. While most of the two stations' operations have been merged, they still have separate studio facilities, separate governing boards, and conduct separate fundraising efforts. During 2009, WNET's parent company, WNET.org, sustained financial difficulties, and in January, the company pared its workforce from 500 employees to 415 due to severe problems with its budget and fundraising. In October, WNET announced that its studios at 450 West 33rd Street would soon be up for sale as it no longer needed the extra space. In November, WNET announced that all WNET.org employees would take an unpaid furlough for 3 to 5 days between Christmas and New Year's Day, with a skeleton crew of engineers remaining during that time to keep the stations on the air. However, they too would have to go on furloughs at the start of 2010. In 2011, WNET moved its studios and offices to its current location at Worldwide Plaza. Channel 13 has been broadcasting digital only since June 12, 2009. On July 1, 2011, WNET took over the programming of New Jersey Network's television stations, which were relaunched as NJTV, now NJPBS. The network featured increased coverage of news and issues pertinent to New Jersey, as well as programming from the WNET and PBS libraries. The transfer of programming to WNET was part of Governor Chris Christie's plan for the New Jersey government's exit from public broadcasting. As part of the deal, WNET airs NJTV's nightly statewide newscast, NJ Today, which was renamed NJTV News on November 4, 2013, to meet its local programming obligations since it still operates on a frequency allocated to Newark. Previously, it had aired NJN's newscast, NJN News, which it co-produced with NJN from 1978 to 1981. The program continued to air on WNET even after NJN took full control over its production. In 2014, the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center were built at the southwest corner of 66th Street and Broadway. This facility houses 2 television studios. The space can also accommodate lectures, screenings, and concerts. The facility is named in honor of James S. Tisch and his wife Merrill S. H. Tisch, whose $15 million gift was at the time the single largest donation from individuals in Channel 13's history. On May 9, 2017, it was announced that WNET would resume broadcasting from Lower Manhattan at One World Trade Center by the end of the year. In 2019, WNET acquired New Jersey news website NJ Spotlight. The following year, it merged NJ Spotlight with NJTV's newsroom, with the NJTV newscast becoming NJ Spotlight News. NJ Spotlight would merge with NJTV News in 2020. On March 25, 2021, WNET.org was reorganized as the WNET Group. On July 2nd, 2020 at 9 a.m. during the FCC repack, WNET relocated its digital signal from Channel 13 to Channel 12. Original productions. This is a dynamic list and may never be able to satisfy particular standards for completeness. You can help by adding missing items with reliable sources. That's from Wikipedia. Notable general audience programs produced by WNET. WNET has produced, created, and or presented a number of PBS shows. This includes, but is not limited to, Africa, 2001, The African American Journey, 2002 to 2005, Aging Out, 2005, A Love Affair with Opera, 2001, A Man Poor and Company, 2018 to the present, American Masters, 1983 to the present, Assignment America, 1974 to 1975, Australia, Beyond the Fatal Shore, 2000, Bill Moyers Reports, Earth on Edge, 2001, Black Journal, Center of the Storm, 2002, Changing Stages, 2001, The Charlie Rose Show, 1991 to 2017, Chasing the Dream, 2014 to the present, Colonial House, 2004, Casino Amore, 1999 to 2002, Dickens, 2003, DNA, 2003, Echoes from the White House, 2001, Egg the Art Show, 2000 to 2003, Extreme Oil, 2004, Firing Line, 2018 to the present, Freedom, A History of Us, 2003, Frontier House, 2002, The Great American Dream Machine, 1971 to 1972, Great Food, 2001, Great Performances, 1972 to the present, Heroes of Ground Zero, 2002, In Search of Ancient Ireland, 2002, Innovation, Life Inspired, 2004, Justice and the Generals, 2002, Live from Lincoln Center, 1976 to the present, Local News, 2001, Lord of the Universe, MasterChef USA, 2000 to 2001, The Mind, Monarchy, Moyers on Addiction, Close to Home, 1998, Nature, 1982 to the present, New York, a documentary film, 1999 to 2003, which was co-produced with WGBH-TV in Boston. NET Opera Theater, 1967 to 1974. Now, 2002 to 2010. NYC Arts, 2012, formerly known as Sunday Arts. On Our Own Terms, Moyers on Dying, 2000. The Open Mind, 1956 to the present. Our Genes, Our Choices, 2003. PBS NewsHour, weekday editions, 1975 to 1995, and weekend editions from 2013 to 2022. Reagan Needs Health, 1979 to the present. Real-A-Days, 1975 to 1977. Red Gold, The Epic Story of Blood, 2002. Religion and Ethics News Weekly, 1997 to 2017. Real New York. The Rise and Fall of Jim Crow, 2002. Savage Earth, 1998. Savage Seas, 1999, co-produced with Granada Television. The Secret Life of the Brain, 2002. Secrets of the Dead, 2000 to the present. Simon Shamma's Power of Art. He also hosted The Story of the Jews and A History of Britain with the BBC. The Six Wives of Henry VIII, television series that broadcast in 2003. Slavery and the Making of America, 2004. Sound and Fury, 2000. Soul, 1968 to 1973. Srebrenica, something. A Cry from the Grave, 1999. Stage on Screen, 2001. The Story of English, Sunday Arts. The Tavis Smiley Show, 2004 to 2017. Taxi Dreams, 2001. That Money Show, 2000 to 2001. Thomas Hampson, I Hear America Singing, 1979. Verna, USO Girl. A walkthrough series of historical walking tours of New York City, including a walk through Central Park, a walk through Greenwich Village, a walk through the Bronx, a walk through Brooklyn, a walk through Queens, and a walk through Staten Island. Warrior Challenge, 2003. Who Cares? Chronic Illness in America, 2001. Who's Dancing Now, 2001. Wide Angle, 2002 to 2009. Wild TV, 2002. Woman Alive, 1974 to 1977. And World Focus from 2008 to 2010. Notable children's programs produced by NET includes Angelina Ballerina, 2005 to 2009, and the original series broadcast from 2002 to 2003, and produced with Hit Entertainment. Angelina Ballerina, The Next Steps, 2009 to 2011. Barney and Friends, the original series, 1992 to 2010, produced with Hit Entertainment. Bob the Builder, 2005 to 2018, produced with Hit Entertainment. Camp TV, 2020 to the present. Cyber Chase, 2002 to the present, produced with Nelvana, seasons 1 through 5. Season 4 with Flying Minds Entertainment, and from season 6 to now with Pip Animation Services and Tidal Entertainment. Freddy's Feet, 2004 to 2011, produced with Decode Entertainment and Core Tunes for season 3. Let's Learn, 2020 to the present. Shining Time Station, 1989 to 1993. Space Racers, 2014 to the present. Thomas and Friends, 2004 to 2017, produced with Hit Entertainment. Alright, Thomas and Friends, Bob the Builder, Barney and Friends, and Angelina Ballerina are programs originally presented by Connecticut Public Television. Meanwhile, Space Racers is a program that was originally presented by Maryland Public Television. WNET has also produced programming for public television stations distributed outside the PBS system, including In the Mix, The New Normal, a co-production with In the Mix. Planet H2O, What's Up in Factories, What's Up in Finance, and What's Up in Technology. Other programming. WNET was also one of the original co-producing entities of the PBS NewsHour, along with Washington, D.C. PBS member station WETA-TV and McNeil-Lehrer Productions. The show debuted in 1975 as a local news and analysis program. The Roger McNeil Report. Jim Lehrer, a frequent guest on McNeil's show, became co-host the following year when the show was picked up by other PBS stations. At the time, as the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour. WNET produced weekend editions of PBS NewsHour alongside WETA TV for the weekday editions until 2022, when WETA assumed production for the weekend edition in addition to its weekday editions. Criticism and controversy. Misuse of federal grants. In 2010, the Office of the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York filed a lawsuit asserting that the WNET subsidiary, the Educational Broadcasting Corporation, misused grant money worth $13 million, donated by the National Science Foundation, the National Endowment of the Humanities, and the National Endowment for the Arts between September 2001 and January 2008. The suit asserted that WNET had used grant money that was given for the production of programs including American Masters, Great Performances, and Cyber Chase for other purposes. WNET settled the lawsuit in June 2010 by paying back the United States government $950,000. Pledging to instate a program to ensure they honored all future federal grant requirements, and agreeing to not receive $1,015,046 in federal grant money that was about to be rewarded. WNET Vice President and General Counsel Robert Feinberg said to the New York Times, "This is not a scenario we want to repeat, and we have no intention of repeating it." Board member influence on programming. In November 2012, WNET was scheduled to air Alex Gibney's film Park Avenue, Money, Power, and the American Dream, produced by Independent Lens. The film compared the wealth gap between the New York residents of Park Avenue in the Bronx and the wealthy residents of an exclusive Manhattan apartment block at 740 Park Avenue, including David Koch, a billionaire businessman and political activist. At the time, Koch was a board member of WNET and was planning on making a 7-figure donation, maybe more, to WNET. A furor erupted when the New Yorker revealed in May 2013 that to appease Koch, the president of WNET at that time, Neil Shapiro, called Koch, offering him the opportunity to screen Gibney's film before broadcast and rebut it after it aired with a written statement. Shapiro said to the New Yorker that he just wanted David Koch. "He's on our board. He's the biggest main character, no one else, just David Koch. Because he's a trustee, it's a courtesy. I can't remember doing anything like this before." WNET replaced the film's introduction by Stanley Tucci with a new introduction calling the film controversial and provocative. Immediately after the broadcast, they aired a statement from Koch Industries criticizing the film as, quote, "disappointing and divisive," end quote. Although a Koch spokesperson said David Koch had only watched the trailer. WNET followed the statement with an on-air roundtable discussion, which the moderator repeatedly mentioned that Koch's philanthropic contributions totaled $1 billion. Gibney was not invited to appear at the roundtable and was quoted as saying, "Why is WNET offering Mr. Koch special favors? And why did the station allow Koch to offer a critique of a film he hadn't even seen? Money. Money talks. They tried to undercut the credibility of the film, and I had no opportunity to defend it." Koch did not make the large donation to WNET and resigned from their board on May 16, 2013. Ethical issues with funding. In September 2013, WNET launched a series called The Pension Peril, examining the economic sustainability of public pensions and promoting cuts to their funding. On December 18th of 2013, Neil Shapiro, president and CEO of WNET, was quoted in a press release saying, quote, "This is the type of complex public policy story that only public television covers in an in-depth and ongoing way. WNET is poised to lead and further the dialogue about this challenging situation all across public media, on PBS, public radio, and online," end quote. On February 12, 2014, Pando Daily reported that the sole sponsor of the pension peril was former Enron trader John D. Arnold, who had financially backed efforts to cut public employee pension benefits. Steven Segaler, WNET's vice president for programming, told the New York Times on February 13, 2014, that he had absolute conviction that the Laura and John Arnold Foundation was an admissible funder, and the funding did not violate PBS's perception rule. On February 14th, Segaler told the New York Times that WNET had reversed course after discussing with PBS both the facts and the optics. "We all take very, very seriously any suggestion that there's a perception problem about the integrity of our work or the sources of our funding. And we came to the conclusion that it's better to err on the side of caution." WNET and PBS issued a joint statement saying the series would go on hiatus and WNET would return the $3.5 million grant it had received from the Laura and John Arnold Foundation. Segaler said in the statement, "We made a mistake, pure and simple." PBS ombudsman Michael Gettler commented that Pando Daddy's article shines a light once again on what seems to me to be ethical compromises in funding arrangements and the lack of real transparency for viewers caused, in part by the complicated funding demands needed to support public broadcasting, and in part by managers who make some questionable decisions. Gettler added that WNET went seriously wrong and that their decision to accept the grant of $3.5 million from the Arnold Foundation with a stated interest in public employee benefits reform flunks PBS's own perception test, which is part of the service's funding standards and practices. Neglecting public mission and mandate. In late 2014, WNET programming chief Stephen Segaler received widespread criticism for proposing to push the multi-award-winning documentary strands Independent Lens and POV out of a prime-time slot and onto secondary station WLIW Channel 21. Over 2,000 documentarians signed a petition stating that WNET's action would lead to the shows being marginalized by PBS affiliates nationwide and having a severe effect on cutting-edge documentary filmmaking. Among the prominent opponents of rescheduling POV and Independent Lens were filmmakers Alex Gibney and Laura Poitras, who had campaigned against a similar move by WNET in 2012. TV producer Norman Lear wrote an op-ed in the New York Times accusing WNET and PBS of a ratings chase that could devastate independent documentary filmmaking. He criticized the broadcaster for threatening for the second time in 4 years to downgrade documentaries, which are at the heart of its public mission. Many of the subjects POV and independent lens covered, like the Koch brothers' influence on American politics and Alex Gibney's film Park Avenue, Money, Power, and the American Dream, have been controversial, leading the Indie Caucus, a group of independent filmmakers, to speculate if the provocative subjects they explored might also be relegating them to the more obscure television schedule. Segaler said it was preposterous to suggest that WNET had a censorship agenda when both programs had run for more than a decade. Our disputatious moment in a many-year history does not a conspiracy make, he declared. In April 2015, WNET relented and restored both strands to their original slots. Inaccuracy and improper influence. In June 2015, a media fervor forced WNET to postpone the third season of Finding Your Roots when the Sony Pictures back revealed via hacked emails that a subject of the series, Ben Affleck, had lobbied for material relating to a relative owning slaves be removed from the show. Those edits, which violated PBS ethics standards, brought strong criticism from the media to WNET and the producers of the show. PBS issued a statement saying the series co-producers violated PBS standards by failing to shield the creative and editorial process from the improper influence, and by failing to inform PBS or WNET of Mr. Affleck's efforts to affect program content. The statement promised for the episode to be withdrawn from distribution and that the series would employ an independent genealogist to review all versions of program episodes for factual accuracy. After the suspension of the series, Adweek commented, "The network clearly understands that its integrity has been thrown into question by this controversy. Even if they understood where the producers of the show were coming from when they decided to entertain the request, PBS and the veracy of all that's included in their documentaries requires decisive action that conveys just how serious this infraction was." The series returned to the air in January 2016. And finally, LGBTQ plus content. In March 2025, WNET came under fire by Republican members of Congress during the anti-American airwaves hearing, which saw the station accused of using public funding to push radical left positions. Following these hearings, the station scrubbed its archives of 3 episodes of the educational program Let's Learn, 2 of which featured a children's book with a transgender protagonist, while the third featured a drag queen. Subchannels. The station's signal is multiplex. Alright, so on WNET spectrum, you've got channel 13.1, which broadcasts in 1080i HD with a 16:9 aspect ratio, that is PBS. And on 13.2 at 480i resolution and a 16:9 aspect ratio is PBS Kids. Its sister station WLIW is also on WNET spectrum. Channel 21.1 is the secondary PBS station, and on 21.3 is World Channel. WNDT-CD channel 14.1, broadcasting at 480i HD resolution and a 16:9 aspect ratio, is First Nations Experience on FNX. Both WLIW channels are broadcast by WNET on behalf of that station. And there is the history of WNET Channel 13 as we wrap up episode number 7 of TV station history. Alright, tomorrow we'll continue our series with episode 8, taking a look at WLIW, which is the secondary PBS station in New York and WNET's sister station. So join me tomorrow for the history of WLIW. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow for episode 8 of Television Station History. Peace out.